All right, day 4 of the Arizona Cardinals training camp. It's in the books, and it was a little bit of a light day. Bo Brock, Craig Morgan, PHNX Cardinals hanging out with you. Drop a like. Of course, subscribe to PHNX Sports here on YouTube. And Craig, it was a light day out there on the practice field for Jonathan Gannon's group.
Yeah, it felt like the calm before the storm, right? So we know the pads are coming on tomorrow.
All right.
And that's when we get down to business. That's what it means something to me. I don't know how you feel about it, but, this all felt like a walkthrough for the past week.
Yeah.
I understand they're getting mental reps and everything, but now the pads come on and it becomes football.
Real football will be played right out there come Monday. We did see something we hadn't seen last week, right? We got to see Marvin Harrison Jr. maybe more incorporated in the offense, which if you're one of the paying, season ticket holders that got to observe today, you saw a little bit of Marv in the end zone, maybe what they could do. I know I saw a little bit of a slant route towards the end zone. I saw a little bit more of a diverse route tree where he's playing towards the back of the end zone. So Marvin Harrison Jr., as expected, featured a lot in their red zone packages. Good to see.
Did you notice him in the slot a couple times today?
I did,
too?
yeah.
I'm curious to see what's happening here.
That's what I've noticed from OTAs. I think as far as this wide receiver core, as much as these guys are going to embrace their role and have specific roles in this offense where Marv's going to be the X and Michael Wilson's going to be the Z and Greg Dortch is going to be the slot, you have an array of wide receivers, including Zay Jones, who we're so impressed by as their fourth wide receiver, a three-position guy as well, that these guys can line up anywhere. And I think that that's going to be something that this offense, this team overall, is going to lean on. That's going to be very important.
Aside from their playmaking abilities, it's going to confuse defenses, right? You love to throw wrinkles at a defense, and they seem to have the personality to do it.
As far as matchups, mismatches, that's what they're going to try to expose offensively, defensively, and Drew Petzing's got a bunch of chess pieces and a very big one in Marvin Harrison Jr. But as Craig said, it was a bit of a glorified walkthrough today. Pads go on tomorrow, and I think we're going to start to learn a lot about some of these line of scrimmage players.
Yeah, and I know you and I are going to be keeping an eye. Now, it gets down to business here, and I want to keep an eye on who's running with the ones. There's a lot of things that we're going to be looking at, but not to pimp my own writing, but I will have a notebook tomorrow, and I do want to look at that specifically. Both of us will be dialed in on who's running where, and then just some other key notes, like just personnel notes. I really want to focus on that on Monday. I'm really curious to see what they do.
Yeah, I think we'll get our first real feel of Evan Brown at the left guard spot. Looks like he's got a leg up at that position. Paris Johnson Jr. going to be over at the left tackle spot, sliding over from the right tackle spot. And then all those defensive linemen that they added this offseason, whether it's free agency or in the draft, like Darius Robinson, we're going to learn a lot about those guys. Talked to B.J. Ojulari today. Obviously a big jump expected from the second-year player at LSU. He said he can't wait to get those pads on. I think those guys are sick and tired of the offense getting all the headlines, and without pads, the offense has a chance to shine. So we'll see that come tomorrow at Arizona Cardinals training camp. Post-practice today, we got to talk to the architect, Monti Ossenfort. Talked to us in the press room. Craig, any main takeaways from Monti?
Well, a lot of it was about roster construction. There were a lot of questions, and I did try to pin him down a little bit on
You did.
addressing the edge rusher position.
Yeah, it was a great question.
Yeah, I think he probably avoided it a little bit.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about roster construction, what you're looking at, what's available in the market, what do you have available in terms of what you want to spend, what do you have on your own roster. It was all generalization.
It was.
I wouldn't say that I took a lot away from that, but I will say this. What Monti made very clear is that the roster's in constant construction. Yep. You're always looking to add pieces, so they'll always be watching what's available. What you see right now on the field here at State Farm Stadium may not be what we see on the field when the season starts.
Yeah, I think his quote was, roster construction is always ongoing. And that's, I think what a good GM is doing. He's never really content or going to be complacent as far as, hey, I just had a 12-member draft class. I'm just going to, let's see how that plays out. They're going to kind of take what they've learned, and he went kind of through the film evaluation, practice evaluation process, and how often they're looking through it, and they're constantly, they're looking to tweak anything, improve any area they can, and they've got an open roster spot right now, and a lot of players, as you mentioned, a lot of continuity in that outside linebacker spot that was not productive at the end of last season. So it'll be interesting to see if between now and maybe the start of September, when the lights get brighter, do they add somebody at that spot? But a lot, 3 preseason games to be played between now and then. Another interesting question I thought was asked was about the guys going into a contract year. And just like the question you asked, you gave us a very kind answer, but it didn't tell us anything as far as are they willing to go to the negotiating table between now and the start of the season with people who are on one-year deals. Yelda Froholt, your center, Buda Baker, your key safeties, the heartbeat of this defense. He said, pretty stock answer, like we're always, talking, and those are things that are an ongoing process, but not specifically if they're going to look to maybe talk to the representation and keep those players in-house beyond 2024.
I think that's pretty standard with GMs, right? They'll be tight-lipped about that stuff. I thought also interesting was what he talked about when he discussed roster construction vis-a-vis the practice squad, because it's been expanded to 70 players with the 17 players with the international exemption, but 16 really. I thought it was interesting that he talked about, in the past it's always been young players. It is a developmental squad, and now it's going to be maybe a mix of veterans and developmental guys. It's a different concept altogether. It will be interesting to see how they utilize that squad and how it impacts the 53-man as well.
Yeah, it's huge for an organization in year 2 of the rebuild. It was paramount in the previous season, but now with the true expansion, they've got an opportunity, as Ossenfort said, not the days of kind of keeping tabs on key free agents or guys that you have to break glass in case of emergency to bring in. You could just kind of, stash on your practice squad and keep them in-house, get them up to speed as far as the scheme goes. So, that's going to be also really interesting as we see this roster play out in preseason. The days of being scared of maybe letting a player go, you can just throw them on the practice squad and keep them in-house. How do veterans
feel about that too, right? We haven't seen that in the past, as he mentioned. How is a veteran going to feel about being on the practice squad? I don't know. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but it's something else to explore.
They also have the opportunity, opposed to younger players. Once you reach a certain year in the league where you're an established veteran, you can negotiate to an extent what your deal is. So you're not just making the stock amount, but and some practice squad players can make more than others. So a lot of things going on here. Of course, make sure you're locked into what Craig Morgan is producing out there on Sunday. Had a look at the running back room, and then the position previews continue next week, and even more so at GoPHNX.com. Make sure you're subscribed. You become a diehard and get just a full run of GoPHNX.com. Between now and tomorrow, enjoy the coverage. Make sure you're following at PHNX_Cardinals, at Craig S. Morgan on Twitter and X, and me, Bo Brock. Like this video, drop in the comments who you're excited to see put the pads on Monday. We'll talk to you soon at PHNX Cardinals.